Hello, hello. I want to talk about fair pricing, especially about your accounting services. And who is it that decides whether your prices are fair or not? This is Lauren Fogelman with Business Success Solution. And a lot of times I'm talking with firm owners, and what comes up is, well, I want my prices to be fair. I don't want people to think that I'm overcharging them or gouging them. And there's some of these doubts that come up when we are talking about pricing your accounting firm services. So, of course, you want prices to be fair, but what exactly does fair mean, and who comes up with that fair price or decides whether it's fair or not fair? And the other part of it is, if you're undercharging for your accounting firm services, is that fair to everybody also? So think about that as well. But when you're thinking about fair pricing, a lot of times you're going to consider your time involved, what your costs are, and hopefully you're going to be able to also consider some profit margin. But I want to say, considering those things when pricing your services tends to be a backward approach. That's because you're considering what's important to you as the firm owner. What we want to do is reverse that and think about what is more important from the client's point of view, and then making sure that all those things are covered. So think about, when you're talking with a client, what determines fair. And this is something that's very, very subjective, because if you're talking with someone who's very price sensitive, they don't really understand what it is you can do for them, they are doing this just because they have to for some reason, then they believe that fair means the cheapest or the lowest prices possible. And they're going to have a lot of exceptions and not get back to your questions or communications in a timely manner. That's one end of the spectrum. And then at the other end of the spectrum are the people who want luxury services. They want to have more access to you. They're looking for advisory and input as they're focusing on their business and development and expansion and being as profitable as possible. And what they consider fair is very, very different. It's at the other end of the spectrum. And because of that, you want to think about who it is you're attracting as your client, because maybe your ideal client is not someone that is startup and at no revenue. Or maybe they already have a business, but they're under, let's say, $300,000 in revenues each year. And those aren't quite your clients either. You need someone that has better cash flow and is able to afford your fees and wants to have the additional services, not just the compliance part of it. So you want to think about, once again, who your ideal client is, and that's going to help you to get an idea as to where you can price services also, because let's just look at vehicles. Someone who wants a vehicle that just gets them from the office to back and no extras, they're going to see a fair price at being at the lower end of the spectrum. But what about the people who are driving luxury vehicles and they want a certain type of driving experience? They're going to be at the other end of the spectrum. So once again, it means that fair is relative. And just because a luxury vehicle is priced higher than that economy one doesn't mean that it's unfairly priced. Once again, it is very, very subjective, and it is the client who decides, not you. The other perspective I want to think about when we're talking about fair pricing, a lot of times comes up with what the market will bear. And once again, think about, what will the market bear depends on what it is that they are looking for and what you're offering. What the market will bear for just compliance only, minimal to file their taxes, is going to be very, very different than what the market will bear for more consultative advisory services with you. And then what about when those things come up that are urgent? Maybe think about that client that reached out to you 4 p.m. on Friday afternoon, and they have a very, very short deadline where something needs to be applied or put in by Monday. That means that in order for you to do this for your client, you need to rearrange your calendar. Maybe you need to cancel some things that you had planned for yourself. and there's some inconvenience on your end. So you decide to go ahead and double your rates in order to accommodate that client's demands. Would that be considered unfair when something is urgent and it's an inconvenience to you, but you're doing that to accommodate them compared to when they gave it to you with a normal deadline that's not going to stress you out and go and creep into your personal time? So once again, fair is relative. It depends on the situation. And the other thing is that, okay, another example is if you needed to get a package over to a particular destination the next day, you're going to pay 3 to 4 times more for overnight delivery than you would for standard ground delivery because there's some urgency involved. And that is just something that we expect, that when there's rush, there's exceptions being made, that we ought to be willing to pay for that. And then once again, it shows that fair is relative depending on the circumstances. So it can go in a wide range of different places. And let's now go back to the original question about how does a client determine whether a price is fair or not? Essentially, what you want to think about is, first of all, if it's a price-sensitive client or not, because the price-sensitive clients, they just want as much as you are possibly going to be giving them for a very, very low rate. So they want to pay low fees, but they have high expectations. But if someone's not price sensitive, then that person needs to determine if the fees that they are getting, I'm sorry, let me say it again. That person needs to determine that the benefits they are receiving are greater than the fees they're paying for your service. So once again, fair pricing, very subjective. A client needs to determine that what they're gaining and the benefits of engaging your firm's services and paying those fees are higher than the fees that you were charging them. So they need to believe that the benefits outweigh the fees and the price. That is really what happens when we're thinking about price sensitive. Depends on who you're talking to, the circumstances, and the deliverables, the outcomes, the benefits, a whole bunch of things. But it's not of you looking at it from your perspective. It's about your clients making that determination based on what is of value and what is coming up for them and their needs for wanting this. So I'm interested in hearing your thoughts about fair pricing. What have you found? What's coming up for you? What's been your experience? And please go ahead, if you're interested in talking further, you want to get paid fees that are reflective of the value that you deliver, then go to businesssuccesssolution.com/worth and get my free resource, Get Paid What You're Worth. Once again, if you want to charge fees that are reflective of the value of what you deliver, get my free resource, Get Paid What You're Worth. It's at businesssuccesssolution.com/worth. I look forward to hearing from you, letting me know what's coming up, how this affirms something, how this is going to influence a decision for you, and how you're going to be able to charge fees that are reflective of the value of what you deliver instead of just your time and cost. We're in Fogelman, showing firm owners how to double their income working half the time.